Rebecca's mind-blowing discovery: the 45-year-old woman who found out she never existed. What would you do if you discovered that every person in your life was an actor? What if your entire existence was nothing more than an elaborate experiment, and you were the only one who didn't know? What you're about to hear will completely shatter your understanding of reality. Are you ready? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 45 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I lived a perfectly normal life in Portland, Oregon. I worked as a graphic designer at Morrison Creative Studio, lived in a cozy two-bedroom apartment on Pine Street, had a close circle of friends, dated occasionally. Nothing extraordinary, nothing suspicious. Just an ordinary middle-aged woman living what seemed like an ordinary life. But 3 weeks ago, I made a discovery that revealed my entire existence was the most sophisticated psychological experiment ever conducted. What I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about your own reality. It started with a simple accident on what seemed like a perfectly normal Tuesday morning. I was walking to my favorite coffee shop, Grind Coffee on Morrison Street, the same route I had taken every morning for the past 8 years. The barista there, Marcus, always had my order ready before I even reached the counter. Medium oat milk latte with an extra shot. It was part of my comfortable routine, part of what made my life feel stable and predictable. But that Tuesday, construction work had left the sidewalk uneven. I was checking my phone, reading an email from my boss about a client presentation, when my heel caught in a crack, and I went down hard. The pain in my ankle was immediate and excruciating. I couldn't put any weight on it at all. A man in a white coat appeared almost instantly. "I'm Dr. James Wilson," he said, helping me to my feet with surprising gentleness. "I was just leaving the medical building across the street. That looks like a serious sprain. We need to get you to an emergency room right away." Dr. Wilson was probably in his early 50s, with kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair. He insisted on driving me to Portland General Hospital himself, even though I protested that I could call an Uber. At the hospital, Dr. Wilson was filling out my paperwork when something strange happened. He paused, staring at my driver's license. With an expression I couldn't quite read, his face went pale, and he looked at me with what I can only describe as recognition mixed with horror. "Rebecca Chen, born April 15, 1978, he muttered to himself, then looked up at me with the strangest expression. This is very unusual." "What's unusual?" I asked, confused by his sudden change in demeanor. "Is there something wrong with my insurance?" He shook his head quickly, almost too quickly. Nothing at all. Just thought you reminded me of someone I used to know." But I could see something was deeply troubling him. His hands were actually shaking as he handed my license back. The X-rays showed a severe sprain, but no break. Dr. Wilson was unusually quiet during the examination, and I caught him staring at me several times with that same disturbed expression. "Take it easy for a few days," he said finally. "Stay off that ankle. Ice, elevation, rest." He paused, seeming to wrestle with some internal decision. "Rebecca, this might sound strange, but would it be possible for us to meet for coffee tomorrow? There's something I need to discuss with you." Something important. The next day, despite my injured ankle, I met Dr. Wilson at Powell's Books Cafe in the Pearl District. He had chosen a corner table, far from other customers, and I noticed he kept checking over his shoulder as if we were being watched. "Rebecca," he began carefully, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to ask you some very specific questions about your life, your childhood, your family, your earliest memories. I know this seems strange, but please bear with me." For the next hour, he asked me increasingly detailed questions about my past. Where exactly was I born? What hospital? What were the names of my elementary school teachers? Who was my first boyfriend? What was the first concert I ever attended? What did my childhood bedroom look like? As I answered each question, his face grew progressively paler. He was taking notes, but his handwriting became increasingly erratic. Finally, he set down his pen and looked at me with an expression of profound sadness. "Rebecca, I need to show you something, but I want you to prepare yourself. What I'm about to show you is going to be very difficult to process." He pulled out his phone and showed me a screen that made my blood freeze. It was some kind of medical database entry with my photo, but the information was completely wrong. Rebecca Chen, subject number 7429, psychological experiment protocol, authentic life simulation, duration 20 years, for months 12 days, status active, next review, scheduled termination. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Dr. Wilson's hands were visibly shaking now. "Rebecca, I've been part of a classified research project for the past 15 years. We've been studying human behavior and memory formation by creating completely artificial life environments for test subjects." The cafe around me seemed to grow distant and muffled. "What are you saying exactly? You're not who you think you are. Your name isn't Rebecca Chen. You're subject 7429 in the most advanced psychological experiment ever conducted. Everything in your life, your apartment, your job, your friends, your memories, even this city as you know it, it's all carefully constructed and artificial." I laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "That's completely impossible. I have memories, going back to childhood. I remember my parents, my school, my first boyfriend Tommy in high school. I remember my college graduation, my first job interview. Those memories were implanted using advanced neurotechnology that's been in development since the 1990s. Rebecca, you've been living in a completely controlled environment for the past 20 years. He showed me more files on his phone, detailed psychological profiles, brain scans with dates going back years, daily observation reports written in clinical language. Everyone you know is a paid actor. Your co-workers at Morrison Creative, your neighbors on Pine Street, your friends Sarah and Jeanette, they're all following carefully written scripts. This is absolutely insane," I said, standing up despite my injured ankle. "You're completely out of your mind." But Dr. Wilson grabbed my arm. "Your coffee shop on Morrison Street? Grind coffee isn't a real business. It only operates when you're scheduled to be there. The barista Marcus, he's been playing that role for 8 years. Your apartment building? Only 3 units are actually occupied, yours and 2 others by actors who play your neighbors." I ran out of the cafe, my mind reeling. But his words kept echoing in my head. I started thinking about strange little things I'd always ignored. Why did my neighbors always seem to have the exact same daily routines? Why did I never see any of my co-workers outside of work? Why did my childhood photos look slightly off, like they were digitally altered? That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I decided to test Dr. Wilson's claims. I walked to my office building downtown. If this was all real, the building should be there even in the middle of the night. What I found made my stomach drop. The building was completely dark, not just closed. It looked abandoned. When I peered through the windows using my phone's flashlight, I could see that the offices were just empty rooms with fake computer setups and cardboard props. My heart pounding. I went to my apartment building and quietly walked to the basement. In a storage room I'd never entered, I found something that shattered my reality completely. Stacks of scripts. Rebecca Interaction Protocol, Day 7234. Coffee Shop Scenario Number 4. Tuesday Morning Routine. Romantic Interest Introduction, Phase 2. There were detailed character descriptions for everyone in my life. Marcus Coffee Shop Barista. Background: aspiring musician. Should discuss indie bands. Personality: friendly, but not intrusive. Should know Rebecca's order and have it ready. Sarah best friend. Background: marketing professional, recently divorced. Should provide emotional support and occasionally create minor drama. To test subject stress responses, I found my own file. Subject 7429 Rebecca. Implanted identity: graphic designer. Introverted, but social. Family deceased in car accident. False memory: monitor for signs of awareness. If subject becomes suspicious, implement Protocol 7 memory adjustment. I was sitting in that basement at 4 a.m., surrounded by the evidence that my entire life was a lie, when I heard footsteps. Above me. She's in the building, a voice said. Basement level. Dr. Martinez. She's found the files. I grabbed as many documents as I could and ran. I spent the next 3 days hiding in a motel outside the city, reading through everything I'd taken. The truth was more horrifying than I could have imagined. I wasn't Rebecca Chen. I was originally Emma Patterson, a 25-year-old graduate student who had volunteered for what I thought was a simple psychology study at Portland State University in 2003. But instead of a week-long experiment, they had erased my identity and implanted an entirely new life. The project was called Authentic Life Simulation, an attempt to study human behavior in completely controlled conditions. They wanted to see if they could create a person who would live a normal, happy life while being completely artificial. According to the files, there were 12 subjects in total. I was subject 7429. The experiment had been running for over 20 years, funded by government agencies and private corporations studying consumer behavior and social control. But here's the most shocking part. The experiment was scheduled to end next month. The termination protocol was chilling, memory wipe and reintegration into general population. With new identity, they were going to erase Rebecca and create someone new. Emma Patterson had been murdered 20 years ago, and Rebecca Chen was about to be murdered too. Dr. Wilson called me on the 4th day. Rebecca, Where are you? They know you've discovered the truth. You need to come in so we can help you. Help me? You've been lying to me for 20 years. I only joined the project 15 years ago. I didn't know the full scope until recently. Rebecca, they're planning to terminate the experiment early because of the security breach. You have maybe 48 hours before they find you. What happens if they find me? Complete memory erasure. You'll wake up as someone entirely new, with no memory of Rebecca or Emma. That's when I made the decision that saved my life. I drove to Channel 8 News with all the documents I'd stolen. I have proof of illegal human experimentation. I told them, and I have 24 hours before they erase my memory forever. The reporter, Jonna Miller, initially thought I was delusional, but when I showed her the documents, scripts, and psychological profiles, her expression changed completely. This is the biggest story of the decade, she whispered. We spent 20 hours preparing an emergency broadcast. Jonna contacted federal authorities and human rights organizations. By the time my story aired, it was too late for the experimenters to stop the truth. The broadcast caused a media sensation. FBI agents raided the facility where I'd been living. They discovered that my entire Portland neighborhood was actually an elaborate set built inside a massive warehouse outside the city, the coffee shop, office building, park where I jogged. All fake. Even the Portland I knew was just a movie set designed to house the experiment. But here's the twist no one saw coming. When the FBI interviewed Dr. Wilson, he revealed the ultimate truth that shattered everything I thought I understood. I wasn't the only test subject who had become aware. Over the past 20 years, 6 other subjects had discovered the truth about their artificial lives. Each time, the experimenters had told them the exact same story I'd been told. But here's what really happened. Every time a subject became aware, they were told they were part of a 20-year experiment. They were shown fake documents and convinced their lives were artificial. Then they were rescued and released. The real experiment wasn't about creating artificial lives. It was about studying how people react when convinced their reality is fake. Dr. Wilson looked at the FBI agents and said, Rebecca Chen's life was completely real. She really is a graphic designer from Portland. We convinced her that her life was fake as part of studying psychological breakdown. The artificial life was the lie. Her real life was the truth all along. The warehouse they showed me, a temporary set built for my discovery. The scripts, written specifically to convince me my real life was fake. The medical files, completely fabricated. I had been living a normal, real life for 45 years. The only artificial part was the elaborate deception designed to make me believe it was all fake. The psychological experiment wasn't about creating a fake life. It was about destroying someone's trust in their real life. As I write this, I'm sitting in my real apartment in the real Portland, surrounded by my real friends desperately trying to help me understand what's real and what isn't. The cruelest part, I still don't know what to believe. Am I really Rebecca Chen living a real life? Or am I Emma Patterson convinced her artificial life is real or someone else entirely? The experiment succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They didn't just study my psychology, they destroyed my ability to trust my own reality. Sarah comes over every evening now, just like she supposedly always did. She brings wine and tries to remind me of shared memories. But how can I trust memories when I've seen how convincingly they can be fabricated? Marcus at the coffee shop greets me by name and has my order ready. But now I see both possibilities. The real Marcus who learned my preferences, and the actor Marcus following a script. My boss shows me designs he claims I created, but I've seen files suggesting my entire professional identity was fictional. The FBI assures me they've investigated and confirmed my life is real. They've shown me birth certificates, school records, employment history, but I've already seen how convincing false documents can be. Dr. Wilson was arrested and charged with psychological abuse. But even that could be part of a larger deception. Maybe he's a real doctor who was manipulated. Maybe the FBI agents are actors too. The most terrifying realization is that I can never know for certain. Even if every piece of evidence points to my life being real, I now know how perfectly false evidence can be created. I've lost something most people take for granted, the basic assumption that reality is real. I scrutinize every interaction for scripted elements. I analyze conversations for signs of acting. And now, I have to ask you the same question that haunts me. How do you know your life is real? How do you know the people around you aren't actors? How do you know your memories are genuine? Because after what I've experienced, I'm not sure anyone can ever truly know the difference between reality and the most perfect illusion. The experiment may be over, but its effects will last forever. I may never again experience the simple peace of unquestioned reality, and perhaps that was the real experiment all along.